The following is a quote from Nicola Sturgeon's autobiography, Frankly, from page 199 of the 2025 first edition.
There was a palpable imbalance in how the British media, the BBC in particular, covered the referendum. I am not claiming that journalists were biased. The problem was more subtle, structural, systemic. I can best describe it in two ways. The referendum was a choice between two possible futures for Scotland, staying in the Union or choosing independence. There should have been examination and proper scrutiny of the consequences of both. But there wasn't. In a sign of what was to come, all of the set-piece audience questions in that BBC debate were, from the perspective of independence, loaded and pejorative. They weren't asking what would happen to standards of living if Scotland became independent compared to what would happen if we stayed in the Union, or what would happen to EU membership with independence compared to what would happen to EU membership if we remained in the UK. Instead, staying in the UK was presented as the benign, neutral option, with the questions framed entirely around what would happen if Scotland chose independence. As we now know, staying in the UK turned out to be anything but neutral or benign in terms of our living standards and place in the EU, but there was very little media focus on these possible consequences. I accept that the advocates of change in any debate will inevitably bear more of the burden of proof than those arguing against change, but in the referendum the Yes campaign bore virtually all of it. The second aspect of the imbalance, which became increasingly pronounced as the campaign developed, was in how different voices were reported. Whereas anything said by the Scottish government was treated as an assertion, everything said the UK government, or other establishment figures co-opted by them, from the President of the EU Commission to the President of the USA, was treated as fact, gospel. All in all, the playing field was far from level.